Emily, and today we have an oat milk latte. No, but I wanted to do a little wrap up for the month of March. Yeah, it was March. Because I read some really good books and some kind of exciting books as well. So I thought it would be fun to do a little reading wrap up. So starting out, I read an ARC copy of Attached at the Hip by Christine Riccio. One, the cover is so cute, and two, I loved this book. I think I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. Yeah, I gave it a 5. I personally thought this book was so good, and I mean, I do read romance, but my primary genre is definitely fantasy or fantasy romance, and so I sometimes find romance to be a little bit redundant, and so this book is one that really caught my eye. It is essentially, if you were to take a romance book and mix it with Survivor, that's you would get Attached at the Hip. It is so funny, and so the Survivor aspect of it really introduces some very different and interesting happenstance, and I ate it up. Like, I was so entertained through the entire book. I finished it so fast. I loved the drama. I loved the scenarios that the characters were thrown into. I thought that the character development was good. I mean, it was a fluffy book. I really enjoyed it. Yeah, there's not much to say other than that. I've never read a Christine Riccio book before, and I am excited to seek out some of her other books. Attached at the Hip comes out sometime in May. I will put the date on the screen, and I will be picking up a physical copy of that book because I thoroughly enjoyed it. Next, I read another ARC. It was just the month of ARCs for some reason, I'm not sure why. I read The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center, and I gave this book a 3 out of 5 stars. I thought that the first half of the book was so good and really captured me and pulled me in, and then towards the latter half of the book, it did slow down a bit for me, and I felt like I was having a harder time getting through the latter half of the book. But overall, I still really enjoyed the story, and I'm so thankful to have received the ARC, and I don't think a 3 out of 5 is a bad rating by any means, and I don't really want to say much more than that because it is an ARC. It will be coming out in June. I'll put the exact date up on the screen. Yeah, it was my first Catherine Center book, so I was very excited to get to read it, and yeah, that was that. Next, I read The Toll by Neal Shusterman. This one I gave a 3 out of 5 stars as well. It was kind of the conclusion of the, I don't know if it's the Scythedom, Arc of the Scythe. That's what the series is called. I started out reading it via physical book, and I was really struggling through it. I think I was just not really in the mood, coming off of 2 more fun and flirty romance books, then going into The Toll. That was a lot for me, and I think that I was a little bit disappointed only with how much momentum we had built up over the book right before The Toll. The conclusion of that one was so intense, and there was so much buildup and so much happening, to then kind of go to The Toll where it was a little bit slower. I felt like the overall pacing of The Toll was slower for the most part. There was a lot less conflict in it than I expected. I had to switch over to audiobook partway through because I was really struggling, but I did not want to abandon it because I really wanted to finish the series. I felt like the conclusion was a great conclusion. Nothing that I expected, honestly, but I felt like it was fitting, and I think that it made sense for the story. And then I actually have a physical book for this one. I read It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. This book was the first, was it the first Tessa Bailey book I ever read? Okay, this one was interesting to me because right after I finished this book, I felt like it was a 4 out of 5 star. I thought that the premise of the story was different and interesting. I liked that it was kind of a mix of a uptown girl, I guess you could say, with a fisherman guy, a more burly fisherman guy. What kind of happened after reflection was I really did not enjoy how the male main character handled conflict in this story. I felt like it was very immature. I dropped it down to a 3 because that just really bothered me. I didn't like that. I didn't like that part. I felt like there still can be conflict without it being handled in such an immature way. And I just felt like she deserved better. Would I recommend this book? I don't know, probably not. Next, oh my goodness, was a big boy. We started the Throne of Glass series, and I did decide to start it with The Assassin's Blade. This book got a 4 out of 5 from me. I don't know if it would have been higher if I read it later in the series. I'm not sure, but I really enjoyed getting to know Celaena and kind of her origins and the things that she has gone through. I don't know, her life decisions in this book were so interesting to me, and I felt like she was a very complex character that I wanted to get to know more. This book is the door opening into a huge series that I am so excited to dive further into. I did wind up starting Throne of Glass pretty soon after I finished this. I'm maybe 70 pages into it, and it's going really well so far. I don't know how I feel about it compared to ACOTAR. That is the first series that I read from Sarah J Maas, but I am glad that I started it finally. I would love to know your opinion. Please no spoilers, because I have been avoiding spoilers like the plague, but if you guys have an opinion and want to debate the reading order of the story, I would be so interested in hearing like why you read it in a certain order or why you wanted to start it in a certain way, whatever. This seemed to make the most sense for me personally and why I started with The Assassin's Blade, but I know that there are so many other people who read it in different ways. Next, I read Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. I was encouraged to read this book by my mom. I've been hearing about it, but I don't know if I would have picked it up as quickly as I did without my mom saying that it was such a good book. And wow, I gave this a 4.5 out of 5. I struggled with the immaturity of the main character, or one of the main characters, but the perspective of the octopus, yes, you do hear a perspective from an octopus, really just was amazing, as well as the other main character that was in the book. She was incredible, and I just thought it was such a cool reflection of life and this snapshot of these people's lives at this point in time. And I really have found that I enjoy stories like that, just writing about almost like the mundane sometimes, and how deep these authors can get about just something that from the outside might seem mundane. I listened to it via audiobook because my mom said that the narrator was incredible, and 10 out of 10. The narrator did such an amazing job with this book. Next, I read Check and Mate by Ali Hazelwood. This has been on my shelf for a while, and I read Bride by Ali Hazelwood and really enjoyed that one. So this definitely moved up in the want to read list after finishing Bride, and I really enjoyed this book. I gave it a 4.25. I know that's a little, like, some people don't like the 0.25, 0.75, whatever, but it really is a 4.25 in my opinion. I was kind of surprised because this, to me, it's classified as a young adult book, and I think it's a little on the edge of what is considered a young adult book based on the physical stuff that happened between some characters. But unfortunately, I have read books like the recent published by Lynn Painter. That one I thought was more provocative than this book, and this book happens between 18, 19-year-olds, whereas Lynn Painter's book happens between minors. I don't want to like sit here and like nitpick at it, right? But I was just surprised that people were saying that this one was more explicit. I didn't really feel that way. I felt like this book was really focused on Chess and the main character and how Chess has contributed to her life in good and bad ways. So that's just kind of like my little tidbit about that, because I know that people were talking about the content of this book. I think the reason why I gave it a lower rating is because there were some characters that, despite the attempt at like a character arc, I just found them insufferable and really frustrating. And I think that, you know, did kind of sour some of the book for me a little bit, but I just thought that this was a really good, entertaining book. Hold on, I need a sip of my coffee. Last but certainly not least, oh my goodness. Last but certainly not least, I finished The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I love her so much. She is the author of the Dance of Thieves duology that I love, love, love so much. This is her first series, I believe, and it is called The Remnant Chronicles. There's 3 books in here. It's a trilogy. And this book was so good. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a little bit slower paced than I went in expecting, but I don't think that that was necessarily a bad thing. I think it was a lot more reflective on the emotions of the character than I was expecting, a little less action. But overall, like, Mary E. Pearson's writing, there is just something about it. She just adds a touch of magic into everything. Like, it truly is wonderful and such a delight to read. And I am just very excited to see what happens in the rest of this trilogy, because this does leave off on a cliffhanger. I went to my Kindle and I downloaded the second book, The Heart of Betrayal, because all of these books are on Kindle Unlimited. If you have Kindle Unlimited, definitely download these. I really enjoyed the main character, Leah. I thought that she was great and has such a heart of gold. And I love that Mary writes characters like that, because I felt the same way with Kazi in Dance of Thieves and Jace. I felt like her characters just have such a heart of gold, and I really love that and really appreciate that, because that doesn't mean that they're perfect, and that doesn't mean that they do all the right things or know everything or have everything figured out by any means. It just means that they are trying their best to do the right thing, and I really enjoy that type of character. So that is all of the books that we read in the month of March. How many books is that? Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Hey, that's pretty good. We read 8 books in March. I would say that is a success. 2 books a week. I was not expecting that, because March was such a busy month this month. It was insane. I was just not expecting to actually read that much this month. That's kind of surprising. So yeah, overall, really good reading month, really solid reading month. Excited about the arcs and for those to be released in the coming months, and just excited to continue some of these series that I started this month. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if there was a book this month that blew you out of the water, like 5 out of 5, really, really good. Or if you read any of the books that I read this month and really enjoyed them, or maybe not. And I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. I love talking about books with you guys, so please leave me a comment below. If you want to see more videos from me, like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. I will see you in my next video. Okay, happy reading. Bye.